The Maine Supreme Judicial Court has handed Central Maine Power and the company building a controversial corridor a legal victory. But for now, work on the project still can't move forward. Good evening, everyone. I'm Amanda Hill.
And I'm Pat Callahan. This was the second of two rulings the High Court has made regarding this project. It stems from a lawsuit against CMP, the company building the corridor, and Maine's Bureau of Public Lands.
CMP needed to scrap an intended section of the new corridor because of complaints about crossing the Kennebec River Gorge and its proximity to protected wetlands. So it came up with a detour, one that involved using state-owned land it had leased from the Bureau back in 2014 and leasing an additional section from the Bureau as well.
A lawsuit was filed claiming the Bureau needed approval from the legislature for those leases. That's what the Supreme Court ruled on today.
News Center Maine's Jack Mulmid has details of that ruling and reaction from both sides. Jack?
Pat and Amanda, this really was one of the biggest victories we've seen for the energy company, which for the last few years has attempted to build an energy line from Quebec to New England grid, mostly to benefit Massachusetts. This is one of two lawsuits surrounding the corridor, and now half of that battle has been won by the parent company of CMP. But as you mentioned, while this is a victory, they can't restart construction just yet. Here's why.
More than 50 pages of a legal opinion from the Maine Supreme Court, all of it siding with the New England Clean Energy Connect project, backed by CMP. It's the latest blow to those against the project who argue that building such a large corridor will harm the forests and wetlands in the Kennebec Valley. CMP first leased one piece of state-owned land back in 2014, about the time that a similar project in New Hampshire was on the verge of being denied. And then in 2020, it renewed the lease while crews were at work clearing the rest of the way to the Canadian border. So what's the holdup? A voter-approved referendum from 2021, where Mainers approved a new law that would make it so any project the size of the CMP corridor would need to have the legislature's approval. And the new referendum approved by voters? It also made it retroactive to when the project was conceived, including before CMP leased that public land from the state. Opponents had argued that any such lease would need approval by at least 2/3 of the legislature. But the Supreme Court says the Bureau of Public Lands was well within its constitutional and statutory right to lease the land. Representatives from CMP call this a big victory. Quote, today's ruling by the law court is yet another step in the right direction for Maine's renewable energy future. The serious need for the NECEC project to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels, combat climate change, and lower energy prices remains unchanged. Meantime, those supporting the referendum passed by voters, which could block this project altogether, called today's ruling a big loss, saying, quote, in our opinion, the Maine Constitution clearly places a safeguard protecting our public lands from CMP's development of a transmission line that provides little to no benefit to Maine consumers. So now it's on to the second court case, where CMP is arguing it has rights to the project without legislative approval and cites the Maine state constitution. At the end of the summer, the Supreme Court tossed the case back to a smaller court, which will have its trial in the spring.
A lot of this is hard to keep track of, but at the end of the day, the take-home is that the energy corridor is looking more and more like a reality. But it'll all come down to whether CMP and Avangrid can win that case that the Supreme Court sent back down to a lower court. If the companies can convince the judge that its rights to continue the project outweigh the citizens' referendum, construction can resume. But again, that case will only be heard in the spring.